Hey everyone, this is Tim from the Lasell College IT department. And today I'd like to show you how to use our utility thumb drives for diagnosing hardware problems, running virus scans, and fixing some OS problems as well, the operating system. To get started, the drives are in the help desk, usually on the blue lanyards there. What you have to do is put that into the computer, turn it on, and depending on the model, you'll need to press one of the the F keys, to be able to boot to the USB device. A lot of times on a Dell, it's F12. You want to just press that slowly and methodically as it's booting to give you the boot devices. On an HP, it's going to be F10. A lot of times it might be an escape key as well. You usually see that as it's booting up. So get that, select the USB device, boot to that, and you're going to see this blue screen here once that loads up. So this is our custom screen to load our utilities. You'll see first thing you're going to encounter is the Windows Defender utility. This is great for antivirus scans on Windows machines. It's probably the first thing you want to do if you suspect that there's virus or malware, is to run one of these. You'll note that there's a 32-bit as well as a 64-bit. If you see on the front of the machine, if it tells you if it's 64 or 32, go ahead and select the appropriate one. If you're not sure, just select one or the other, and it's either going to work or tell you that it's the wrong bit rate. If it's the wrong one, reboot the computer and choose the other one. This tests for system memory and hard drive failures. Both of these are pretty straightforward. I'll show you how to use them. But any failures on either one, and you need to recommend that the student seek outside help to replace that hardware. So these are our diagnostic utilities here to diagnose those two things. A lot of times if a computer is slow or it's blue screening and there's no malware, you're definitely going to want to try these next. So they kind of go in descending order here. If the computer's acting funny, look for malware. If you can't find any malware, start testing the equipment there. Next thing on the list is Ubuntu Linux. And then this is, you'll use this if you can't boot into the OS. If there's something preventing Windows from loading, you can boot into this and sometimes retrieve data that may not be accessible. So someone comes in, they got a final project due, but they can't load Windows and their file was saved on their computer. You can go in there, pick out the file and email it to them, and they can complete their assignment on the public computers. Next, we have the imaging utility here. This is what you'll be using to re-image the loaner computers. You can't use this on any computer that's not a Lasell computer. It relies on the keys that we've already purchased for Lasell machines, and it's just not going to work on those other computers. It's also hardware and software specific, so it's designed to run on those loaner laptops that we have. So I'll show you how to use that as well. Next, we have the Dart utilities here. These are some higher level diagnostics. I could show you how to use that too for doing system recovery or running command line repairs. Down here at the bottom, we have an AVG. This is another antivirus scanner, which if you suspect that there's a virus that's staying on the machine, you ran Windows Defender, couldn't get it, you ran Malwarebytes, still comes back, you can try this as well. It's a little more intense. It can definitely harm some of the system files if you don't use it correctly. So I definitely advise that only as a last resort. You probably want to check with the staff before you use that. Active password changer, pretty straightforward. Definitely want to verify that the machine you're using that on is definitely the client's machine, so check their ID, etc. You don't want to just be using that on any machine that comes in. So alright, these first two I'm not going to walk through. They're pretty straightforward. You boot to it, run an update, do a scan, and it's going to clean it. Pretty straightforward. One thing you want to note is when you run that update, you're going to have to plug in the Ethernet cable, which is okay and it's safe to do because this is running outside of the operating system. So it's okay to plug in that cable and run that update. But as soon as it's got that update, pull the cable back out. You don't want the virus getting out onto our network, and you don't want that virus to be able to reach out to the internet to fix itself as it's being scanned. System memory, pretty straightforward. There's only one test you can run there. If it fails, advise them that they have to go get their memory swapped. Hard drive, I'll show you real quick. There's a couple of options here. So go ahead and run that. It's going to load this little program here. Looks like this. You just say I accept. It's going to scan for the drives. If they're having problems and this doesn't find the hard drive, that might mean that there's a failure of the hard drive to the point where it's not even powering on. So they might have to definitely get that swapped. But if the computer's running slow, or if it's taking a real long time for certain programs to open, or those sorts of things, and you've already ruled out malware, you definitely want to test the hard drive. If you have time, do the long test here under the basic test. If you don't have enough time, you can do the short test as well. And what this does is scan the sectors on the drive, the areas where the data is stored, to look for damage. If there's any damage, you really want to swap that entire drive. Alright, so I want to show you real quick some of the other utilities that we got here. Next thing I want to show you is the Ubuntu utility here. So this is just a Linux operating system. Linux is just a kind of machine language. Mac OS X is actually built off of Linux. Windows is something completely different. It's basically your two flavors of Unix and Linux, and then you have your Microsoft DOS-based operating systems. So this is real handy if the operating system, if Windows can't load and you need to get some files off of there. What you can do is go into here, check out that hard drive, and get those files and email to them pretty quickly. So it's going to load up, and it's going to look like this. This will look kind of familiar, looks kind of like a Mac. Pretty basic screen here. And if you need to retrieve files, what you do is go up here to Places, and then look under the computer. Normally you'll see a drive here. This is a virtual computer, so it's not going to show up, but you'll see a drive called the OS drive, the operating system drive, or another drive that looks like it's got, 200 gigs or so, whatever their hard drive is. You want to open that up, go to the users and groups, find their name, and then you should see there the common folders, My Docs, etc., etc. So it's going to look like that. And you're going to be going to the OS disk there, that name, opening up the users folder, finding their name, and then you'll see their documents there. Once you find their documents, all you got to do is open up Firefox here in the top. Go to theoutlook.com, log in, and send an email to themselves with the files attached. If it's a lot of files that they need off of there, you can just plug in a flash drive and drag and drop from here. That's really the best thing to use this for. Some other things you can do with it as well, but we won't go into it in this tutorial here. So next thing I want to show you is the Dart tools here. As far as the imaging tool goes, there's a pretty good step-by-step guide we already have in the knowledge base. Definitely check that out for how to re-image the loaners. So for the Dart tools, it's the same thing as the Windows Defender. There's a 32 and a 64-bit version. Try one. If it doesn't load, try the other one. Go ahead and click on that, and it's going to load a file. And just walk you through a couple steps here. Alright, so once that loads, you're going to be prompted with a couple questions here. First thing, do you want to initialize network connectivity? Just say yes. It's not going to hurt you, and there's a couple things there that might require that. It's going to ask you to remap the drives. Just say yes. That's fine as well. Go ahead and click next here. It's going to search for Windows installations on the disk. If it's a Vista computer, it might have to reboot one more time before it finds it, it's going to prompt you to do that. It'll say it needs to fix something, just reboot, load it again, and you'll go right away. If it's a Windows 7 computer, it'll go right through right away. So you're going to get, these are the actual Dart tools here. Startup repair, pretty straightforward. If Windows is unable to load, definitely try that first. If you can't get any further with that, or if there's major damage to the system, you can try a system restore. That's going to when you run that, you're just going to have to select the restore point, and the closer you can get to the actual date, the more likely that you'll be able to actually restore it. Further back you get, less likely, and more likely that's going to be a lot different than what they're expecting. So you kind of want to use that sparingly, but know that that's how you get to it. Command prompt here, pretty straightforward. One of the really handy, this is why this tool is really so handy, is this command here. I'll show you. First thing you want to do is just a cd/ will bring you back to the straight prompt here. And then you're going to want to find the operating system drive. Usually that's the C drive. You do a C : to change to that drive. And if you do a dir, that'll show you the directory of that drive real quick. So you can see here, this is definitely the system drive I'm working off of, this virtual drive. But when you check on the computer, you'll see that it says Windows, it says users and groups, program files, the kind of things you would typically see on the regular C drive. So once you change to that drive and you verify that you're there, there's a command called check disk. If you do a check disk /r, chk dsk/r, this is going to check the hard drive for any data that's stored on bad sectors and kind of remap that to bring that data back to life. So if you're having some trouble with the machine, you can't get it to boot, you could try that as well. That's a good thing there. To get out, just type exit, hit enter. Down at the very bottom, there's some advanced tools. You click on that last option. There's a locksmith here. You can change passwords as well. Same goes with that. You definitely want to verify they are who they are. These other things, don't use the registry editor. Don't use the disk wipe. Some powerful tools in here that you don't want to be using. SFC is a good tool to use. It scans the system files to repair any broken files. Another thing you can use is the standalone system sweeper here at the bottom. And that on a real computer, you run that and it looks a lot like the Windows Defender. It's another antivirus scan tool. It's pretty simple. You click update, you click scan, straightforward stuff there. But that's another thing. If you're having trouble removing a pesky virus, you might want to try that as well. So those are the real major handy things that are in those Dart tools. So back at the main screen here, we went over all these things here. AVG, probably want to check with staff before you actually use that. Same with the active password changer. You want to check with staff before you use those two utilities there. Definitely the Dart tools, Ubuntu, testing hard drives and memory, and the Windows Defender. All good stuff that we can offer the clients. Definitely help some people out with that. So if you have any questions, let me know. But this is a good introduction to what those tools are and what those drives have to offer. All right, thanks.